talking about just the blitz days that we need to have. So another solid day. We hit 15K for the day yesterday again with a late night. One of the guys that was here yesterday morning, Faith's boyfriend, Reggie. Reggie dropped a Siggy like at midnight. We were like, yeah. So he was pretty pumped. It was his first sale. So he was really excited to get that knocked out. But had that late night.
Are you live streaming yet?
I am. So anyway, he had that late night demo last night. So we got to 30 last night, our goal. And I know that we broke down for these next couple of days, making sure we were set up. I was talking to Mary Lou last night. Is today going for a minimum 10, but we had another 15K day today, 25K tomorrow, 30K plus Saturday, 10K Sunday. We know Sunday will be a little bit smaller because it is Father's Day, but still, you know, if you can throw down $2, $3, depending on what your family's doing, you know, because that day you do want to make sure you set aside 4 hours, whether it's earlier, later, you know, 4 or 5 hours to make your 100 calls, you know, and just like rip through your 100 calls. So you guys need to check. I need to know by tonight what's your family schedule for Sunday. Cool. Just so we can solidify the phone jam from Sunday. Sunday, the office will be open from 10 a.m. until 9:30 p.m. Someone will be here at different shifts. So it'll be open. So you could come in and do like 10 to 2 or 10 to 11 if that's what you want to do. And then the rest of the day, you know, hang with the family, do whatever, maybe do a demo or two. Some of you guys will do like breakfast, church, lunch with the fam and come in from like 2 to 7 and then go home for dinner, you know, while some of you guys will like be with them for the day and come in from 4 to 9, you know, whatever. Sunday's flexible because of Father's Day, but I need to know what's going down by tonight. Okay. So just talk to the family and say, hey, I can pick when I come in. I just need to figure out my work schedule for Sunday to make sure that we're set up for next week. So as we build into this week, so tonight at 6, please be here. Plan on being by 5:30, so we're ready to roll because I really want to go through part 2 of yesterday of just really alley-ooping and from your demos, always having more demos set up ahead of you guys. You know, I think about today and the power of really setting up the next week for the push, and it all starts with the phones. Yesterday, we should have had a 20K or a day or more, but we had probably half the group didn't have enough demos, and the other half of the group had a lot of reschedules and cancellations. Okay, so Mary Lou last night was like, you need to switch the you know, to phones, and I was like, oh, I was gonna do phones at 6 today. She's like, we need phones in the morning. I was like, all right, cool. So I wanted to walk through, and I know some of you guys have heard me talk on phones, but I don't think you can ever hear certain things enough, and I think it's so important to get appointments for when you want them. But as a team, by the way, we are going for, we need everybody today having minimum 3, but the goal was 4+ per person. But then we wanted blitz days for tomorrow, and that's what I need to get. Like, you know, can you go for 8 in a day or 9 in a day for tomorrow, you know, for Saturday, and then Monday. Those are 3 days that we're going huge. So maybe one of the days you can't do any because you have baseball or you're out of town. Another day you can do 4, and then the other day you can do 8. But really, how many people can go for, you know, 5 to 9 demos? Those 3 days we're really going for office blitz days, division, the squad blitz days. So in terms of the phones, so this is, you guys have heard a lot of different things, but I walk through this, but I wanted to walk through again because some of you guys, I hear you guys on the phone and you're still saying, you know, random things. And so I wanted to go through with you guys, and whether it's not just what you say, but it's also how you're saying it. And you can be doing any approach, but I really want to hear you guys building urgency for when you want it, okay? And when you're talking on the phone, you know, first when they're connecting with you, and I think like if you guys listen to, you know, Chavez phone or Josh or, you know, any of the veterans, Olivia, you're really good at the initial hook and the rapport part of the phones. You know, like some people are like just naturally really good at that, and some of you guys are like super awkward. But again, you have to pretend like there's in front of you. You know, and you're like, hey, how are you? How's everything? Like, and you've been buddies forever. All right. So you guys are calling different people, but as you get into Rex, and I know some of you guys are calling recommendations. By the way, for the newer guys, do not touch your recommendations until you have accrued over you need to have over 100 of them, and you need to have passed your skills checks, okay? This is very important. The only recommendations you can touch are ones that would know of you or you know of them. If they're acquaintances, gear 2, that's okay. And I know probably for some of you guys, at least a third, some of you half of your recommendations are people that you're connected to, so those are fine. But the recs that do not know who you are and you do not know, they don't know that you're on this planet, don't touch those yet, okay? You need to pass your skills check, because it's like jumping into a 2-foot pool versus a 10-foot pool. And if you dive into a 2-foot pool, you're gonna die. You're gonna crack your head open and die, okay? Just so you guys know. So you wanna make sure you give yourself room to jump in there and make sure you get things done. So when you're chatting with the phone, so first of all, I know that there's a scholarship approach. I know I've seen a couple of you guys floating around with Alan Seal, one of our top old reps and managers, with his approach. I love, mine it's very similar to the acquaintance and scholarship kind of mixed together, because just you start talking. But really, like, if you guys go online to Vector Connect, and I don't want you to do this and overwhelm yourself, but the fact is a lot of time people have put their approach and I have my approach, and the approach really doesn't matter as much. And you get what you're comfortable with. If you're more comfortable with the acquaintance, I use that forever. And so my approach is very similar to the acquaintance approach, with a little bit of the scholarship approach mixed in there. Some people really love the scholarship approach when they're calling. That's awesome. I know Mary Lou, you guys that, and I know some of you guys have gotten other Brooks passed out stuff on phones. Like, it doesn't matter. It's really these 4 steps that are important. And so I want to bring it back to that, because regardless of what approach you're using, it's not the approach, it's the delivery of the approach. And where some of the approaches have the rapport built in, have the sharing goals built in, have the urgency built in. Like if you use mine, like the urgency is already in there. It's in the approach, because that's just how I made my calls. And so here's the first thing is, and for anyone, whoever coaches anybody else, any FSM, anybody, I know, and anyone needs to know, that you can book appointments without building urgency. You can book appointments without building urgency, okay? But it affects how many you book for when you want them, and it affects completion ratio, 1000%. Because when there is urgency for the customer, they're not going to reschedule on you, because they know how hard you were working. They know how important that appointment was to you for that time. When you're just like, you're like, okay, yeah, I'll definitely be there. Thank you so much. That is not how a call should end, ever. Okay, your tone really does need to change. And again, I know some of you guys are like, oh, I've heard this. You've heard it, but you're not doing it, because I hear you guys phoning, and I want to make sure that it's getting done the right way. So when you're talking to someone, in step 1, you're chit-chatting, cool? Hey, how are you? This is Cody. Oh, yeah, my mom, this is Mickey and Armando's oldest daughter, Kathy. How's everything? They're like, oh, my God, how are you, honey? Da-da-da-da. And there's that initial convo, initial hook. And then step 2 is, why you're calling, like what you're doing. And it's like, hey, the reason I'm calling, I just started a great new job showing Cutco, da-da-da, or hey, and you're letting them know what you're doing, which is in every approach, So you walk through what you're doing. They're like, oh, it's great, right? And so letting them know, yeah, like I'm working with this company to get experience, I can get scholarships, da-da-da-da. And so you go through them, they're like, oh, it's awesome. All right, and then when you go to step 3, you've got to change your tone a little bit. Like, so Ms. Jones, here's why I was calling. And it's like, so here's why I'm up at 7 a.m. right now. Like they need to know why you're up, why you're calling in the morning. So right now, by the way, this is not push, so you guys need to write in. So it says, hey, I'm not sure if blank told you. So that is, if it's a recommendation, I always tie in the friend too, because again, that makes it more connected, more personal, and they're more apt to like, they want to help you because you're like a friend of theirs, even though they haven't met you. But I'm like, oh, I don't know if Olivia told you, and that's Olivia's the one that gave me the recommendation, or if you're talking to your mom's friends, hey, I'm not sure if my mom told you, or hey, I don't know if Miss Smith told you, and I would add in there where it says ... it is the push period right now, or like whatever's happening. Be like, I don't know if she told you, but right now we have a huge competition going on for the next 2 weeks. I don't know if she told you, but I'm working super hard for this scholarship. right now, or whatever it is. Like, it's usually like a contest, and that's what I add that in there for. So I'm like, so I don't know if she told you, but right now my whole company's in the playoffs. Be like, so think about the World Cup or the Copa Americana or whatever it is. Like, we are in the playoffs for the next 2 weeks, and my goal is to be one of the top performers and put myself on pace to win a scholarship. In order to do that, I have to do 5 a day. All right, so just let them know what's happening. All right, you don't have to say it like that, but that first little paragraph and make a note next to it, let them know what's happening. Why do we want to do that on the phone? Do you have to book the appointment, do that on the phone? No, the answer is no, you don't have to. But what does it do? Can anyone tell me what you think it does by telling them about it already?
They know that you can get right away.
Okay. Yeah. It's only, and by the way, you're tying them into you, your goals, your contests. That's going to affect the recommendations you get too on the demo, by the way, and that's going to affect your sales, right? We've talked about the more you connect, the more tied into you and what you're doing that they are, the more apt they are to want to help and be a part of things, whether it's giving you more people to see, whether it's giving you, and by the way, those who did demos yesterday as a whole, it definitely increased our average recommendations yesterday. So great job implementing stuff. A lot of the guys really rocking out with recommendations yesterday. But I wanted to go through with this because, again, the rapport and all that, it starts on the phone. So don't forget that. So when you hear, as you hear whoever on the phone, like, it starts there. So it's you chatting, they connect with you, and you're letting them know, yeah, I have this huge contest. You know, I'm working super hard for this scholarship. Like, whatever you're working for, you want to let them know about it on the phone. So I always tell them about the contest and be like, hey, so I've got to do 5 a day, yada, yada, yada. So it's just what's happening right now. Cool. That's the first part to me before I find a time is I always want to inform them on what's happening now. So initial hook, I let them know why I'm calling, right? In general, I'm working with Cutco, da-da-da. They have a chance they can get great experience. There's internships, scholarships, whatever you're talking about. Cool. Now it's find a time, step 3. And in that process, when I'm building urgency, I'm letting them know, hey, here's what's going down right now. And hey, the reason I was calling, and put a star next to that, please. Next to the reason I was calling, everyone put a star. Hey, the reason I was calling now is that in order to stay on track, I still needed to squeeze in 2 more for today. All right. If you need for today, that's what it should say. By the way, nobody in this room should have a demo after 4 p.m. today. I will sacrifice every single sale after 4 to make sure we crush tonight and load up this weekend. And tonight at 9, when we're done with the phone, and by the way, we might go till 9:15, we might go till 9:30. We've got to get goals met. I want to have dinner with the Alliance, so I want to have dinner tonight and do goals pages and do your vision pages and do all that. So get some time together, cut and paste, whatever. It's like arts and crafts time at dinner. So I'd like to do that later tonight and make sure that we're set up as we go into the weekend. But anyway, I need to hear you guys. Like when I hear you phoning. And really because the objective is to make this group the best, that anyone that's around you guys, and if they're listening to you phone or you phone, they're like, oh, that's how you do it. You need to be the example of it. So understanding, so the hook, you know, in general, what you're doing, and then finding a time. So, hey, here's what's going on now. And the reason I was calling is that in order to stay on track, I still needed to get 2 more for today or 2 more for tomorrow. And I was wondering if there was any way that you could squeeze me in on such short notice at blank or blank time. And I always say that no matter what. And so my manager was like, oh, you're always booked up. Yeah, I am. And if you come to SLDM. Some of you guys have already been to it. I'm running 1 more for the year this Tuesday that will definitely impact your results. But you know, when you guys go through this and you say this, like, you're gonna get demos. People move stuff around. People move their schedules around when they see how hard you're working. And again, always, you know, people are like, oh, you know, later next week, whatever. Like, it's like, oh yeah, I could definitely give you a call for next week, right? We have a 2-week competition. But, you know, like, I hadn't hit my goal right now. And so that's what you're getting across to them. So when someone says, oh, you know, call me next week, I'm like, Ms. Jones, I could totally give you a call next week. Be like, I know you're crazy busy. I'm just working so hard. I'm like, if there's anything I can help you out with, I'm like, I can help you make breakfast tomorrow morning. I can make lunch for you. I'm like, it's one less thing you have to do. And if you could give me 15, 20 minutes, that would be a game changer, you know, and just like really diving in with them. And so I hear people like, oh, I don't want to feel, I don't want to intrude, or I don't want to like make them feel like I'm like pushy or da-da-da. No, what you need to do is when you're, that's why you have to share your goals, is that they see how hard you're working and that you're willing as a young person, you know, as a professional, to come early morning, late at night, be like, Ms. Jones, I will come at 7 or 6 a.m. before lunch. Be like, I'll come at 6 a.m. to do a demo or 7 a.m. on Saturday, or I will come at 11 o'clock at night if you let me. I'm just working so hard for this contest. Just bringing it back to that. And they're like, wow, that's great. So it's more like inspiring how hard you're working versus like, well, I need this. It's not a needy thing. It's like, hey, I'm working so hard. I'm like, if there is any way you can squeeze me in, it would be awesome, or it would help my goal, or it would be a game changer. If you guys have one demo left, offer 15 minutes and 15 minutes after it. But when you build the urgency, again, don't forget, if you just set it up normal, they might get completed, it might not. When you build urgency, I will tell you guys, when you build urgency and firm it up properly, you will complete at a minimum 80% of your demos. But for me, like, I knew 90% of my demos were getting done. I've met with reps before that I've coached through the past decade or 14 years, and they're like, oh, I need to do this many demos, and then like probably I'll do 60% of them, and I'm like, excuse me, what'd you say? And they're like, yeah, I usually have about like almost half of them will reschedule, and I'm like, whoa, I'm like, that's a big issue, and that has to do directly with how you build the urgency for the time. It really does. Because, by the way, you could do everything else perfect. You could build amazing rapport, share your goals and all that. But if you don't build urgency for the time, like that affects your reschedule percentage 100% of the time. Just so you guys know, like, it affects it. You might not think it does, but it does. When you book it closer to when you spoke to them, the chance of it happening is much higher. And even if it was within 2 days out, but you built urgency and it was like, that's when you guys could get together. Like when their friend calls them and goes, hey, John, there's a whatever happening at blank place, do you want to go? And they go, oh, I had an appointment with John Austin. And they're like, oh, you know what? He was available whenever. I'll just give him a call. Or if you're like, oh, is Friday good? Or is Saturday good? Or, which day is best for you? And they know that you have openings all over. They don't feel bad saying like, hey, let's do it another day. They don't feel bad because it seemed like you had time on different days, right? So don't forget the psychology of that. And again, if you guys hear a rep say, oh, when's good? Or, oh, I'm available, all day. It's a death sentence in Cutco to say that. I want to reemphasize this, okay? Because again, I coach people nationally on this, but like, it really is like you're shooting yourself in the foot when you're like, oh yeah, I'm available all day, whenever it's good for you. Because that day comes, that person goes, oh, Anthony was available whenever. They don't feel bad for scheduling. And they're not trying to be mean. They're not trying to screw you. They didn't really, like, you seem like you were available at different times. So, it's not a problem if something else comes up. Versus when you build the urgency, hey, I just need to get these 2 more, and they're like, oh, okay. And they set it up with you. When their friend calls them and says, hey, can you come over or whatever? Let's go do this. They go, you know what? Ariana's working so hard for this contest. I told her I would help her with this. Let's go right after, versus like, oh, she said she was available. Let me reschedule with her. And yeah, let's go. All right. So people do things in life based on fun and importance. Everyone got that? People do things in life based on fun and importance. So you need to let them know that it's both. And that's where you're going to have higher. Like that you guys are going to have a fun time. All right. And through having fun with them, cracking jokes, penny in the fridge, like whatever you want to say, we're going to play some Fruit Ninja. I'm going to be the highlight of your day. A lot of my top guys would always say on the phone, like, Miss Jones, by the way, I'm going to be the highlight of your day. They just kind of laugh, but it's like they know they're going to have fun with you. So that's like the more loose and fun you are on the phone versus like, Mama, I need a demo. And they're like, oh my God, I'll help this kid. But like, they're not as excited to see you. The more you have fun with them on the phone, the more you make them laugh. Cool, they're gonna have fun. And then by building urgency and letting them know how hard you're working, it lets them know that it's important, okay? So those are really big things that need to happen. Now, that's finding, so now you found the time, right? And if they're not available, you're like, hey, no worries. Figured I'd ask, I'm just working so hard. And so my rule was always, because again, psychologically, some people do it different. Some people say, oh, is it better on blank day or blank day? Or is it better in the day or in the evening? And just so you guys know, and even like, Travis didn't train with me. When I was raised in the business, one of the things that I was taught was just a lot of the psychologies behind everything. And it was just like, okay, if you say, hey, when's good for you, it still shows that like you have different times. And again, you don't want to be open. First off, you want to always offer your next to availables. Why? Always offer your next to availables. Why? Anyone?
Oh, because we still have an option to choose. No, because you're more likely to meet up with them right after you talk with them.
Yeah, but why specifically offer your next 2 available times on the phone when you're talking to them, like when you're offering times?
Have a full day.
You can jot it down if you're ever coaching anybody else or mentoring someone. The reason you're always offering, like, that's why you called them. Like, so psychologically, it's like, why'd you call them? Because I still haven't booked up these last 2 times, okay? So psychologically, that's the reason you called them, was to book those last 2 spots. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm not asking, is day good? Is evening good? Is blank day good? Or is blank day good? No, because the reason I called them is I still needed to book up those last 2. Does that make sense? Okay. So psychologically, and this is more advanced, but it's like, oh, Miss Jones. And again, you're prefacing, hey, I know this is last minute, or I know, and that's why I always say that. I preface the fact that, like, hey, I know it's short notice, or, if you could squeeze me in on such short notice, like, I know that, but I still hadn't hit those times. That's what you're making sure they know. And then if they can't, then I'm like, hey, no worries. Figured I'd ask. I'm just working so hard. Is it better for you in the day or in the evening? And then it's, hey, let me check my schedule. And that's another very key thing when you say that, and you're like, and I have it in here, right? Yeah. So you're like, let me check my schedule. Because again, it shows you're organized, you're on a schedule, you've got stuff happening. And so again, that reduces the amount of reschedules that you guys are gonna get, okay? By doing it that way. And you're like, yeah, so I can pop by real quick at blank time, or blank work better. And again, it's a psychology of like, I'm working hard, I'm moving and grooving, I'm not gonna come and waste your time, so it's like, hey, I can pop by real quick, I'll be in and out. And they're like, yeah, let's do it, all right? And then thank them again, like, hey, you don't know how much this helps me. And so you bring it back up. So it's like, hey, da-da-da, like, this is why I was calling. And so you find that time with urgency, and then, okay, awesome, thank you so much. So step 4, you've got to firm stuff up. Some of you guys are just ending it there, and you're not firming it up the right way. And you wanna make sure they know, and you can give the sob story, as you go through there. So make sure that they write down, holy shit. Get this all on. Make sure that's a push right there. He's like, boom, got 6 random orders. But step 4, you want to make sure you firm it down. So do they write down a confirmation number? Do they always put a penny in the fridge? Do you guys do that every time? So it's like, hey, Miss Jones, jot this down for me. Hey, can you put a penny in the refrigerator? Like, what? Builds curiosity, builds anticipation. I'm like, yeah, have it nice and cold. I'm like, just have it cold for me when I get there. And they're just like, what is that for? I'm like, you'll see. I'm like, don't worry, I'm going to be the highlight of your day. I'm like, we're going to have a great time. All right. So make sure that you write down with the confirmation, get the address, get all the stuff, house color, all that. But then the sob story of like, hey, bye. And by the way, now your tone changes again. So it went from like, this is what I'm doing. It's so nice to meet you. So, hey, reason I'm calling, building urgency. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I can't wait to meet you. This helps me so much. And then you're like writing stuff down or whatever for them. They get to the confirmation number. And once you finish that, tone changes again. Hey, John Austin. I'm like, by the way, is this a time that definitely works for you? All right. I don't hear you guys slowing down. I don't hear you guys changing tone, firming up. I've been listening to some of you guys phoning. So at the end, I'm like, hey, hey, by the way, Miss Williamson, hey, by the way, Miss Austin, is this a time that definitely works well for you? And they'll be like, oh yeah, or yeah, it should, or yeah, but call me before. That means no. I'm going to book somebody else in that spot. If you listen to John Berghoff when he did 69 grand in 2 weeks, you're like, how'd you do that? He completed X amount of demos. Like, did he never have a schedule? Anything that was wishy-washy, and even like anything that didn't, like, that was kind of like weaker, meaning like they weren't like an all-star or star rec of the customer, he always double booked them. Meaning he booked 2 at the same time. So if someone was kind of weak, he'd book someone else during that same time that was stronger, 30 minutes before or after. And the time of the demo, when we were getting close to it, he'd decide which one he'd go to. And worst case, he'd reschedule the weaker one. But if you ever have to call before you go or call to make sure, like most of the time, that demo's not happening. Okay, so over half of the time, it's not going to happen. And for some, it's even more. So never, if I have to call before I go, you guys need to make a note. Okay, so this is important. As you're getting booked, you need to make notes of like, like rate them, cool? Like star, you know, like a 1, 2, or 3. So star one, you know, like, oh my gosh, this lady was awesome on the phone. The friends told me like this is a star person, like they love to cook, whatever, you know, it's a star customer. There's also this wonderful little thing called Google Maps that a lot of my reps used to use, and they would always go on Google Earth, and they would see like the house, and they're like, yeah, all right. They'd like look up where they're going when they got the address, but just book and then upgrade. Like upgrade to your best demos. You want your best demos lined up, you know? But anyway, anytime someone's wishy-washy, anytime like I'm putting a negative next to them, like this was not, like if I can find a stronger one to replace it, I will, okay? And by the way, just because someone says they're not going to buy anything is not a weaker one, all right? I'm still going to see them. But Josh, in the case of last night, if I had someone that was like, oh my gosh, I need kitchen stuff, I need to get everything, well, then I would obviously put that one in front of the other one. But even if they say they're not going to buy, some of my biggest sales have come, like nothing. Even if they're like, oh, I've seen it a bunch of times. Like I've had several of those people that bought whole sets, all right? And then I've had some that didn't buy. Like you just don't know. It's like the same freaking numbers. Just go over and do your thing, you know? But anytime someone says on the phone, oh my God, I need kitchen stuff. Yeah, I'm going to get them as soon as possible. And then I want all their recommendations. So just being a smart business owner of like, let's get booked immediately, but then rate, like know who you're seeing and like make notes for yourself of how they were on the phone. Because when you have 20 demos, like I don't know, unless you're like super amazing, like incredible Chavez and better than I ever was, you know, if you remember each voice and each person of the 8 demos that you have for today. He's like, all right. So I make notes next to them so that I remember like who that was or like what we talked about, whatever. Like it just helps you a lot more, know. And if I'm, let's say, Charles, you're at your first one this morning and the lady's like, my sister is redoing her kitchen and she needs everything. Like I want to see her today. So I'm looking at my schedule to see who was one. Like if my next one though at 12 was one of my ones that was like, I need everything. I'm not going to replace her, but I might book her sister for 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock, like, so I want to be listening. I want to be listening. I want to be attentive. I want to know who's in my schedule because that's going to help me always make sure I'm getting the best people lined up. And that was something that when I started selling, and that was something that John always shared, his secrets to having that $69,000 push in 2 weeks was that he was booked always, right? Even when there was a reschedule, it didn't matter because he always had demos. And then one of the other things I got from him, guys, that I want to share with you guys is always having a backup list. Make a note of that. Backup list. Who are those people? The ones that tell you, call me before, right? Call me before you come or da-da-da-da. But also, let's say you're totally booked up, right? You're booked for today. You've got your day. Some of you guys are booked. Some of you guys are not. You're booked for tomorrow. If you're doing your job right, you're booked 48 hours out. Cool? And I'll talk about that in a minute, like just making sure today is a focus to make sure Friday, like today, last minute ones, but Friday and Saturday need to be booked by 9:30 to 9. So we've got the whole day to make sure we are totally booked for Friday and Saturday. So your 48-hour window is so important. So when you guys are talking to people, or excuse me, rewind. Where was I just going before I said that? Yes, thank you. So if you're totally booked up, right? And you talk to someone, and so you're loaded for today, Stace, you're loaded for tomorrow, you're booking them for Saturday. Everybody do this is, even if like the reason you didn't book them up for today or tomorrow is because you're already booked, ask them, hey, by the way, if something becomes available today, is it okay if I call you back for today? Cool? Or if you're totally booked for tomorrow and you book them for Saturday, I'm like, all right, Miss Jones, I've got us confirmed 2 p.m. Saturday. I will definitely be there. Thank you so much. And hey, just so I know, if something becomes available on Friday, is it okay if I give you a shout? Are you usually home during the day? Okay, cool. I'll make a note. But definitely I'll see you on Saturday. Can't wait to meet you. And if anything comes up sooner, I'll give you a shout. Cool? Boom. And I always had a list, and I learned to do this because this is how I had a grand day every single Saturday of my career. Even when I was booked and I talked to people and I had no more spots or I booked them for later, I said, hey, by the way, if something becomes available, is it okay if I give you a shout? All right. So that way you had your backup list. So if Friday I have a reschedule because someone is going to need to reschedule, then I'm just like, all right, let me call my couple people that told me that I could call them if I had something available Friday that I have for Saturday, and I'll just push them to Friday. And then Friday, with my 5 calls before and after throughout the course of the day, I'll just rebook the one for Saturday. Everyone with me? Or I'll book one of their friends for Saturday. So I'll pull up demos whenever someone reschedules. So you need to always have an attack list for like, okay, I have someone reschedule. All right, what's my attack plan when someone reschedules? Well, sometimes I have those ones of call me that day, right? That I can just, I'll call those. Second thing I'm going to call is anyone I had for tomorrow or the next day that said, hey, yeah, if something comes up, sure, feel free to call me. If not, I'll see you on Saturday. I'm going to call those people to try to book those immediate, because that's an easy way to get an immediate, cool? To get one right away. You know, and if not, I'm just going to build urgency on the phone and say, hey, Miss Jones, are you possibly available now? I actually have an opening right now, or I could come later at blank time. Don't be afraid to ask for an immediate appointment, all right? But make sure you have your backup list. If anyone ever says, yeah, that should be good, those are not, those are tentatives. I put those on my tentative list, call them that day. And I tell Miss Jones, I'm trying to get as many of my demos solidified before that day. So if I do have an opening, I'll definitely give you a shout that day, regardless. So we can set up whether it's that day or for another day. But if that time's not definitely good, I'd love to find a different time that is. I'm like, if not, you know, I can call you that day, but I'm not sure if I'll have any openings still available. And that's where my manager always joked around like, oh, you're lucky if you get into Kathy's schedule. But I was like, look, I'm busy and I'm working hard, and like, I'm going to get booked. I'm not going to wait around for someone who said, call me that day. I'm not going to reserve a spot for someone who said that time should be good. Like, no, I'm not. I'm going to book someone else in that spot. I'm going to have backups. And then if I have everyone who's like, for sure, Josh, for sure that day, and they're all super confirmed, then cool, I'll start booking my next day. But even to those people, I'll say, hey, by the way, if something becomes available Friday, is it cool if I give you a shout? And I have my backup list for Friday, all right? You should always have a backup list of 10 plus people, you know, for that day is like my goal. 5 minimum, you know, but just, again, because you're making your calls, because some of you guys are like, oh, well, I'm already booked up. I don't need to make any more calls for this week. No, you will have reschedules. You will have some people that need to move something around or need to cancel. And so where is your backup list? You still want to make your calls to book up ahead, you know, keep booking up whatever your next availables, but make sure you also have backups for that day, or double book any that are weak. So I want to stop and open it up to questions from you guys. And by the way, sorry, I never got to the sob story, but you know, just let them know, like, hey, Miss Jones, I just want to make sure this time definitely works well for you. Just because like the other day, I actually drove I was over in Katy, and I actually drove up to Conroe to see this lady, and she wasn't even there, you know? So I know that people are busy. I know moms are so busy, and you might have stuff going on, and I'm like, I'm just working so hard. So I just want to make sure that time definitely works well for you. Okay, awesome. I'll be there at Blend, you know? So making sure that you guys let them know and give them the, you know, I drove all the way and this lady wasn't even there. And that's when you'll catch the people that'll go, oh, well, call me before, it should be good. And I'll just tell them, I'll say, hey, by the way, I could give you a shout. I'm like, honestly, I'm going to be going from appointment to appointment, and I might not get through. I'm like, so if that time's definitely not good, I'd rather find a different time that does work for you. And they're like, no, that time should be fine, just in case. I'm like, hey, if it's an emergency, no worries. Leave a note on the door for me and I'll know. All right. And they're like, all right, cool. So make sure you have that. So questions. I want to open up to questions.
So I've got several of these yesterdays. They're like, I'm just so busy. And then they say their schedule. They're like, I just don't want to waste your time. I can't commit to anything.
With those, I'm like, hey, by the way, I always offer them to do something. I'm like, hey, Miss Jones, I'm like, I get it. I'm like, my mom, like we're 4 kids. Like, so it's always like the agree, but however, talk logically, ask again. You guys want to get really good with your objection cycle of like, always like, you know, understand where they're coming from, but however, talk logically, ask again. So with them, I'm like, hey, I totally get it. Like my mom was crazy busy, you know, with the chaos of us. So I'm like, if you just have a lot of stuff, I'm like, but like I said, I'm like, I'm able to help you. I'm like, are you guys planning on having breakfast, lunch, or dinner in the next 2 days? I'm like, I could actually come over and just cook for you. Like, and then if you could just give me 15 minutes, I'm like, I could wash the dishes for you too if you want. I'm like, but if you're able, you know, to squeeze me in, I'm like, I won't take long at all, and I can definitely help you with meal prep. I'm like, I actually get paid to chop stuff up with you, so I can really help you with any meal prep, and it's one less thing you have to do, and it'll help you out. You know, like that's just an easy thing. Like they're all gonna eat, yes or no? Like they're gonna eat in the next next 2 days. They're going to prepare some kind of a meal, or I'll prepare it for them. So that was my kind of go-to, you know, and sometimes I was like, I'll clean your bathroom. I'm like, what do you have on your list, on your to-do list? Let's see what I can knock out, you know, but I'm like, and by the way, I always gave them an out, Anthony. I'm like, if you can't, you can't, I got it, you know, but if so, I'm more than willing to come help you with any meal prep. That's what I get paid to do, is chop stuff up. I was like, and it would help me out so much, you know, and if they just can't, they can't. You're not going to book everybody. Out of a list of 10 names, just so you guys know, on average, you'll book 2 demos. Cool. Like that's the average, is if you have a sponsor, you'll see 2 of those people. If it was a good list, you'll see 3, 4, or 5 is a great list. Like if you saw 5 out of the 10 that someone gave you, that's great. And that's where I'll talk about later today. We went to Yeses. We went to, the whole company went to Yeses. What I mean by this is we were just people who said, yeah, sure, I'll help you out. And we knew that if we were getting 2 or more, and check this out, like how the business builds, just so you guys can see this. If you have, you know, 10 demos, right? And, you know, if you're from those 10 demos, if we were just getting 1 more, right, you're replacing your business, right? That's not a very exciting business, but you always have business. You're kind of breaking even. There's always something there. Now, if you were getting 2 yeses, like 2 appointments from each one, well, that turns to 20, that turns to 40, that turns to 80, that turns to 160, that turns to 320. That's a lot more exciting, right? And then guys, if you just got it to 3, and this is where I use the peelers to get those, and I want to book those immediate demos, and we'll talk about later, but from a list of 10, if I just saw 3 of their people, that's awesome, all right? If I'm seeing 3, that 10 turned into 30, that 30 turned into 90, that 90 turned into 270, that 270 turned into whatever the heck that is, like 800-ish, all right? But if you guys look at that, right? And then that turns into 2,400. That grows at a much higher level than this does. Do you guys see that? And it's just 1 more. And that's where I learned to use the vegetable peeler. I'm going to talk about that later tonight to make sure, you know, things, I was, you know, actually, so that's it. If you're just seeing 2 to 3 people from each list, that's awesome. You know, so I don't need their whole freaking list. So know that too, because some of you guys get caught up in like, and everyone's not picking up. Everyone's not going to be able to see you from the list. Not everyone's going to, like, they're like, oh, I'm so busy here. I got this, that. So I'm going to do what I can. But my goal is to book up minimum 2, if not 3 from every list of 10. Cool. That was my goal. Because if I'm doing that, I am building my business big time. So know that not everyone's going to be able to do it. Not everyone's going to pick up. I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to offer and say, hey, Miss Jones, I get it. Moms are so busy. I'm like, if you're able to help me, it would mean the world. I'm like, I will help you with whatever you need. I can help you cook dinner. It's what I get paid to do anyway. And if not, hey, no worries. I get it. I know people are busy. And then they're like, you know what? We can do it. You know, if they're like, I just can't. I'm like, hey, no worries. Thank you again so much. I really appreciate it. And that was that. All right. So that's how I would. So any other questions?
Even if I don't say no, I think you can reschedule with you, because I have one at 10 a.m. canceled today at 5 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I totally understand. But it's not like they're saying no. Like I'm still keeping in contact with them.
With those people, I'm like, Miss Jones, I'm very real with them. Like if they keep, I'm like, hey, I'm working super, oh my gosh, we don't want Sprint. Anyway, with those people, I let them know, I'm like, hey, I know you're busy, because it's almost like I'm giving them an out in terms of like, I know you don't want to say no to me right now, but like I can't keep waiting type of thing. All right. So
if they were still interested in helping me out with the scholarship opportunity and like that, because their son worked for Vector
Yeah.
also, so they understand.
got it. So I just let them know, I'm like, hey, if we can find a time that definitely works, it'd be awesome. Be like, because I keep counting on it, and then someone else books up. And honestly, if you're going to book them again, I'd double book and put someone else during that same time,
Okay.
you know, and if it pops up and you still want to see them, then go see them. If not, you reschedule them to earlier or later. But with someone like that, I just told them, like, hey, Miss Jones, if you can't do it, like I just assumed they couldn't do it. I didn't keep like, well, can you still help me? My question was actually the opposite. It was like, hey, it seems like you're so busy and you're probably not gonna be able to do it. And like, I get it, it's okay. Be like, if you're able to, still awesome. I'd love to find a time that works, just because like I have a certain amount of spots I need to fill, and I don't want to reserve it, you know, if it doesn't work for you. But if you're able to, awesome. If not, hey, I get it. I know people are busy, no worries. Like, I appreciate you wanting to help me out. But I don't know, you know, it looks like it might not be able to work out. And like, oh no, we can do it. Let's do it tomorrow. And they do it, you know, or if not, just scratch them off my list. I'm not gonna keep chasing them around, you know? So again, offer to help them with a meal, offer to help them with whatever, but you know, it's okay to be real and say, hey, Miss Jones, it sounds like you're just so crazy. Like if they've rescheduled on me 4 or 5 times, like I'm like, it just sounds like you're crazy. busy. I'm like, if I can come help me make breakfast, I'll do it, but if not, I don't want to reserve another time. And then, cause it set me back the last couple times. And I know you're busy, so it's no, it's no worries. I really want to hit my goal. So I've got to complete 40 appointments, and I'm going to tell them that. All right. Any other last questions here? Okay.
Moments are born from great opportunity.
You shouldn't have any doubt in your mind about what you're supposed to do tonight and about how you're supposed to do it.
This is your time.
Yeah.
I don't want them to gain another yard.
We gotta go out there and we gotta take it.
You take their game and you shove it like that in your face.
That's how winning is done.
Team's something you want to, something you feel, something you have to earn.
If we don't come together, it's over. And I guarantee you, we won't go by in your life. We won't regret walking out, letting them get the best of it. I'll ask you one last time. To be the best that you can be. Play like champions. Win.
It's about heart. It's about who can go out there and play the hardest.
It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. I don't care what the scoreboard says at the end of the game. In my book, we're going to be winners.
In any fight, it's the guy who's willing to die,
Willing to take the hits.
who's going to win that inch.
I'll tell you something you don't let you. Nothing come between us.
On this team, we fight, and we shut them down because we can.